everybody. Welcome to Liverpool Latest. I'm your host, Matt. Thanks for joining me today. I have a lot to talk about, including Slot's press conference after the horrific loss to Man City yesterday. This is Monday. I'm recording this, by the way. In addition, I have some thoughts from Jamie Carragher as well as Gary Neville and two takes I'm very surprised about. And last but not least, a little talk or rumor, perhaps, about Federico Chiesa. If you enjoyed today's video, please leave a like down below and comment your thoughts. I would love to hear them. And if you are new here, I encourage you to subscribe. Let's get right to it. So, Arne Slot had a lot to say in regards to the loss to Man City yesterday. Some things I definitely agree with, and I see his point of view. Other things I still question just a little bit. Let's just kind of read down the list of my notes and see where we go from here. All in all, the real message that he is trying to convey is that he thinks that they are improving. And a quote that he mentions in that press conference is, if you compare this to 3 or 4 months ago, he thinks that they are improving a lot. So he believes that the press is a little bit more coordinated, if not more so than ever. The physical level is there. I mean, maybe on the field, yes, but as far as injuries go, maybe not so much. And they can go toe-to-toe with elite possession teams. Plus, let's not forget that we more or less dominated the second half of the game. So, right there, I see sides of things and I don't see where he's going with. Yes, I agree in some regards the press is a little bit better. I still think the creativity when it comes to goals is lacking a little bit. I don't think guys are trying to get as open, or it's a result of the low block issue that we have been consistently dealing with over the course of the season. Do I think we could go toe-to-toe with elite level teams? Yes and no. I think if you look at that 35 or so minute period of the second half, you think that we were in a championship race. The fact of the matter is, when you look at the grand scope of the game, that 35 minutes, while really good, doesn't negate the 90 plus minutes of It was more or less it was a fine game. Wasn't a great game. It was a fine game for what it was, outside of all the issues that we had. The physical level, I do think we're doing a better job winning duels. I do think the midfield's doing its job a little bit better. Whew. God bless me. Fuck it, we're still rolling. Anyhow, yeah, I do think that we're doing a better job as far as like the defensive physicality and the midfield physicality. I do think the offensive physicality is a bit soft in some regards. I think that they're relying too much on the referee to give them fouls and free kicks at times, and I think that is hurting us. And granted, the ref doesn't call anything on us anyway, especially if your name is Mohamed Salah. So, what difference does it make? The other thing he talks about is that he knows the league table is a problem, and it is probably currently haunting him as we speak. And the most revealing line of the press conference is as follows. The issue is you don't see the improvement in the league table. So yes, while there is some improvement on the pitch, the table does not reflect that, obviously, because we continue to either lose games, draw games that we should be winning, or, I think we've won one game in the last 6 or 7. At least it feels that way. Maybe more. And that's, that's not good enough. That's not good enough. That doesn't win leagues. And it's certainly not going to get us into the Champions League or even the Europa League, as I will discuss in a few minutes here with Jamie Carragher and Gary Neville. So progress certainly is not equaling points, and the performances are not, or Slot's perception of the performances, I should say, are not translating to points on the table, getting us to where we need to be, as we are still sitting just below any sort of Champions League or Europa League play. And the sad part is, and the most concerning part is, with the season only about 2.5 months away from closing, maybe less, time is our biggest enemy. And we have to figure out how to fix that issue sooner rather than later so that we can be remotely competitive for those leagues. There's a rant that he goes on, though, that I would like to read you a direct quote from his press conference, if you would indulge me for one moment. He goes on a very long rant about the refereeing and the red card with Szoboszlai and the non-call on Mohamed Salah, or the should have been red card. And in the middle of his quote, there's a paragraph here that I think is very telling of how he feels about, especially the refereeing in this game. I can live with the fact, although I don't like it, that the referee follows the rule book and Dominic makes a foul on Haaland in that situation, which is a clear shirt pull, and he was through to goal, so he would have scored. So that's a red card. And I think the Sunderland manager is really happy he gives a red card. So that's the rule book, and you follow the rule book. If you follow the rule book, you have a clear shirt pull from Guehi on Mo Salah, who for 8 years is scoring that ball every single time. 100 out of 100 times he scores that goal. A bit exaggerated, and that is not a red card. Then there is more to my frustration. I could see why he's angry there. I think anybody and their mother would say that that's a red card on Mark Guehi if we're following the same preface with Szoboszlai's red card. And 100%, without a shadow of a doubt, it may not be a penalty as we had hoped it would be because it was outside the box, but it should have been some sort of major indication, game-changing moment there. It should have been a red card. If we're calling one thing a red card and we're not calling the other a red card, then where's the consistency? So I'm not going to sit here and complain about referees. Clearly, we all saw the game. We all know how we feel about it. It is what it is at this point. As long as I've been a Liverpool fan, referees have been our biggest enemy, more so than the opposing team on the pitch, every single time, for the most part. And there have been times, especially this season, that we've been lucky with referee calls. Very lucky. That said, it seems like the negative impacts of those calls are outweighing the positives that we have received over the course of the season. Do I expect to get every single call? No, but I agree that there should be some consistency between the referee on the field and VAR in the booth. And I think the fact that there is none is telling, to say the least. You would think with instant replay, referees could get decisions right. But it seems like even in an age of technology being more prevalent than ever in sports, there is certainly no consistency there. And it's very annoying, regardless of what sport you watch. So, one of the last things I want to touch on is the Sunderland subtext that he's talking about. Because we need to figure out what we're doing at right back now that Szoboszlai is not, on the field. Frimpong is still questionable. If not, he's completely out. Gomez is also questionable. So when he says other players can play there, I sit here and I'm thinking to myself, oh, Jesus Christ, we're improvising again. as if improvising was what got us into this mess in the first place. Granted, there were injuries, so that also makes sense. But in this case, yeah, we're screwed. I would not be shocked if we lose against Sunderland on Wednesday. Not at all. I would be disappointed and angry, but would shocked? No. Because when Slot starts improvising with the team in this regard and starts putting, role players into positions that they're not used to, I don't think it fares very well for us at times. So my concern mostly sits in the reliant on too much faith, which I don't think any of the fans have at this rate in time. But the fact that he has faith is very telling, considering that he is more so on the hot seat than ever. And I don't care if there's a public backing for Slot. You can't tell me that the club higher ups aren't sitting behind closed doors saying to themselves, we look like a fucking joke right now. We got to do something about this bald guy. So that's all I have to touch on for the Arne Slot press conference. Now I'd like to give you what I call two takes of the same topic. Carragher and Gary Neville. And surprisingly enough, you would think with the former player would have a little bit more positivity on in our favor. No, the guy that is notoriously hating on us on commentary or pundits or whatever role he has in Sky Sports. I don't know because I don't have Sky Sports. I live in the U.S. He's the one that is more positive here. Shocking, but let's get right to it. In this case, both Carragher and Neville could be right at the same time. Here's what Carragher says that I don't necessarily disagree with. Liverpool don't control games. Okay, that's one thing I don't necessarily agree with him. I changed my mind. I think when we have control of the ball, yes, we control how the game operates. The problem is we don't control the pace. The pace of the game is so controlled in the sense where it's slow, monotonous, and boring. And in that sense, I agree with Carragher. And at that point, that's when chaos strikes and we lose all structure. Because it seems like Slot is so hell-bent on control-focused football that when we don't have control, everything falls apart, which is a very telling sign. Way too many elite player errors are taking place between, obviously Alisson's boneheaded decision, Virgil van Dijk's lackluster performances, Konate's performances, Mo Salah's performance throughout the season, so on and so forth. I'm not blaming any single one individually for the problem. It's a collective effort here. Most players have not lived up to any sort of hyper contract that they have signed or the fans have propped them up on pedestals for. They've done pretty shit. They've all done pretty shit this year, to be frank. There's constantly structural imbalances on the front four, which I think we have a good front four when Cody Gakpo is not fucking playing on the left. But I'll save that for a different time. And the teams above them, City, United, Arsenal, clearly are looking more and more stable each week. And a key line I want to touch on that Carragher mentions is if Liverpool continue the way they are, I don't see how they can make the Champions League positions. The key word is the key phrase here is if they continue the way they are, which indicates an ongoing struggle for that they've been having with games and performances and things of that nature. So again, I don't think Carragher is wrong here. I think any fan that watches if you take the emotion out of it, any fan that's watching these games can say the same thing. I say it every single time I watch a game at this rate, to the point where I don't even enjoy watching the games anymore. I don't. I think any fan has been able to say the same thing, that the games that we're watching are probably some of the worst kind of football we have seen in quite some time. This might be worse than the early years of Klopp or before. Or at least it's getting to that point, it feels like, if you go off public opinion. But either way, we are, what is it, 4 or 5 points behind in the Europa League stage. So when you're still when there's still a lot of games to play, obviously it's manageable. And as I mentioned before, time is certainly not on our side. So Carher is clearly emphasizing that. It's a matter of if we can, do better, and do we have enough time to get better so that we can reach those 4 top spots in the Premier League. So again, I touched on this a minute ago. He also again emphasizes the experienced winners who certainly are not acting like experienced winners. I mentioned the names before. You can also throw McAllister's name in there. This is not the same Alexis McAllister that we have seen in the last year. It's not. I'm not sure why, but clearly something is not right in the sense where he is not playing. He had a great shot, but one great shot doesn't make up for a poor season performance. So that's all I have to say about that. So while the top 5 is possible, it's certainly not guaranteed. And the way the squad is currently built, in his words, doesn't play naturally controlled football, even though Slot wants that. And I think that that is something that is hurting us more so than helping us, because I've been talking about this all season. Just because we have 55-60% control of the game or possession doesn't mean that we're going to do anything with the ball. We still have to get it to the back of the net. So Carragher is a little bit more doomsday, if I can use that term. He's a little bit more weary on if we can make Champions League positions than Gary Neville is, who is somehow, some way optimistic in the sense where he says the gap that we are currently in with 13 games left of the season is survivable. 4 to 5 points is a survivable thing. The question is, who's going to fuck up at the top so that way we can kind of squeak our way in there if we can get our heads out of our ass. So, and of course, City struggling in their own right is certainly not a freakish thing. It's not a systemic collapse. So they're obviously going to keep doing well. So that's a team I still don't have any hope of them collapsing. I still pray for Arsenal, and of course, he believes that the squad has enough experienced heads to steady itself, which I think is hilarious. I'll tell you why I think it's hilarious. They've been saying this all season. The squad has enough experienced heads, experienced players to get us through this rough patch. I don't see that happening. I see no leadership. I see no I see no willingness to win from our top guys. All I see is a bunch of poor performances. So I don't agree with Neville in that. I think he's being very optimistic, more so than any of us would like to say. So he says the season hinges on mental response, not talent, which, if it was relying on mental response, we would have been in a better shape towards the end of the new year when we were facing a slew of shit teams that we were struggling against. That was when the mental response should have taken place. Not this shit. That was to prepare us for what was coming up in the next 10 plus games. And we bottled it almost every single time. So again, I disagree with Neville here for sure. And a key phrase in this that he says is, if they can put it in the box and not let it infect in there. Kind of a psychology over structure type quote, which I'm not really sure how to break that down, to be honest. I mean, I guess maybe not letting one goal or a goal rest on their laurels and think that they're going to win the game because there's always a potential to come back. That's how I'm interpreting it. You might interpret it differently, but I'm not sure. Again, that's one thing where I kind of like scratch my head about with Neville in that quote. But either way, I still believe Carragher has the edge, because I think, as brutal as Carragher is, and you would think he'd be, he's a past player, you think he'd be a little bit on our side. I think that I think he has the edge in this. I think he's more realistic. I think he's more grounded, and he's not relying on, hopefulness. Kind of like Slot's press conference, where he's kind of relying on hopefulness to get us through to those four top spots of the league. And again, it's hilarious to think that Neville is the guy being hopeful for us, but that is I just laugh. I have nothing to do but laugh at it now because it's just too funny to not it's too funny to not laugh at from my point of view anyway. Last but certainly not least, I have a little rumor, and I'm not sure if this has been confirmed or not, but it feels like Liverpool have set a sale price if anyone was to purchase or want a transfer for Federico Chiesa. So the price is very telling to some. 25 to 30 million dollars for a 28-year-old international winger who's with us under contract until 2028. It's not a fire sale for sure, but it's also not a not a keep him price either. So it's a very reasonable price if they want to sell him, and goes to show how Slot and the club feel about Chiesa, which is a bit sad considering some of his performances this season, some of which better than others. Saying that we're open to selling and we certainly won't block you from leaving for sure. So they certainly want to recoup most of the outlay for sure. And I have no words. If that is true, that's very sad. I feel bad for Chiesa. He certainly does not deserve this. I'm not going to sit here and say he's our best player, but he's certainly done his best to show up. And when he gets opportunities, I feel like he kind of squanders them a bit because he's not because he's not good enough, but because he's probably so used to coming in like the last 10 minutes of a game or less, to the point where I don't think he has enough time to begin with to establish himself and the team to establish ways of getting the ball to him. And it's hard. It's hard for someone who's not being put in a position to succeed in most cases to then say, go out and do something when we put you in the game, if it's a starting position anyway. And then he doesn't do anything, and then it just says, and then the team would say, or fans would say, oh, this is why he wasn't good enough to begin with. You guys are just hyping him up too much. It's astounding. I've been in positions like this in professionally where I've been put in positions or areas of work that I am not set up to succeed in, and then I am expected to create results. It's not something you can do overnight. It's something that takes a lot of time. And unfortunately, when they keep sending me to those positions or putting Chiesa in those positions, clearly it tells them something. It tells you or something about how they feel about him as a player, which is very sad, if you ask me. So, why hasn't Chiesa worked under Slot? No idea, but I certainly think he would have performed very well under Klopp for sure, considering it was Klopp signing when before he had left. It's not about effort or talent; it's about the fit of the team, according to my notes here. Where Slot wants high value, volume pressing, positional discipline wide, and ball security in the tight zones, and repeat sprints without the ball. And Chiesa's game is not that. It's explosive, transition based, it's ball dominant, direct to the point, and best when he can do his own thing and freelance a little bit. I think we've seen that a little bit over the course of when he has those sparks of brilliance earlier in the season. Clearly, like I said, he is a very much a Klopp era winger, and it was just the wrong time. It was the wrong time for him. That's also that's a real shame. So it seems like to me the price is a way of telling Italy teams in Serie A like Roma or Napoli, Juventus, they it's telling that, hey, we'll gladly give this to you and you can have him on your team. And I'm sure he'll be able to have more regular starts and much more playing time than what we are currently offering him now. And certainly matters for Liverpool in the sense where the club is backing slot system so much to the point where we are basically sabotaging our own players. And I'm not saying that we have to play like Klopp under a new coach, but I feel like Slot never really gave him a chance to begin with to shine. And the squad is being streamlined for repeatability and not flair. So, the selling point of 25 to 30 million is a smart squad management move. Certainly a quiet admission that he is not Slot's guy. And a move would certainly probably help both parties for Liverpool as well as Chiesa. And if that is the case, I don't know when that news will come, but I salute you for your efforts, Paisan, for all your effort, all your time with us in the club. It's a real shame. Again, it's a player who was never really set up to succeed in an awful time to have a transitional period of a coach between someone like Klopp and someone like Slot. It was just bad timing all around. Poor guy. But thank you so much for watching Liverpool Latest. I appreciate you being here a lot. Leave a like on the video, comment down below your thoughts, and last but certainly not least, if you're new here and you enjoyed the content, please subscribe to never miss an upload for daily news, rumors, discussion, conversations, opinions, and more. I'll see you guys on the next one, because when you join the Liverpool Latest family, you will never walk alone.